Good afternoon. Welcome to Proven Inspiration. Our topic for today is kitchen romance. You're probably thinking, what on earth is kitchen romance? Well, you just wait. I'm going to talk you through it. I'm going to let you know. Okay. So, kitchen romance really is about married couples. Okay. So, it's about the romance that takes place in everyday activities, the opportunities for romance that takes place in everyday activities, and it's usually household activities, housework to be precise. So earlier on today, someone sent me a text, someone that I live with, and they said they're talking about maggots and asking me to keep an eye on maggots near the bin, and I just um, I just looked at them and I didn't say anything. Because I actually had that conversation with somebody else over the weekend, and I was saying how I hate maggots. I hate anything that's creepy crawly related, anything like that. I don't like cooking, but I don't mind cooking because it has to be done. So I give that example to say this: when you are married, there's certain things your spouse will like, there's certain things they'll dislike, there's certain things they'll actually hate. And when you're married, it's important that you do your best to complement each other. So you have your strength and your weaknesses. They have their strength and their weaknesses. So it's important that where they're strong, where they may be strong and you're weak, that your spouse steps in for you, and where you're strong in a different area, then you step in for them. So you're on the same side. You're working as a team. You are helping each other in areas where the other person doesn't really have the strength or doesn't like doing a certain thing. So, for instance, you might not mind cooking, but perhaps your spouse prefers to clean instead of cook. So you do the cooking, they do the cleaning. You might not mind putting the clothing in the washing machine, but maybe you hate laundry, folding clothes up. Your spouse doesn't mind, so you get them to do that. But sometimes what often happens is, in relationships, you could find yourself trying to make your spouse do something that they absolutely hate, and you know they hate it. Maybe they hate gardening, but the garden needs to be done. So instead of getting a gardener in, or if it's something that you like doing, if you could do it yourself, or get a gardener in, because sometimes it's something you dislike and something they dislike, then you have to perhaps think about outsourcing that task for the sake of peace and for the sake of love, because in a relationship, love does not insist on its own way. But what you could find yourself doing is saying, it needs to be done. If you love me, you'll do that. If you love me, you'll do that. And so because your spouse truly, really and truly does love you, they actually go beyond how they feel, and they do that task which they hate. However, I have news for you. If you keep on insisting on your way, if you keep on making them do things that they absolutely hate doing, because just because they love you and they're doing it doesn't mean that they're loving the task. They still hate that task. What you might find is eventually that hate will for that task will turn into resentment, and it will be linked to you because you're the one making them do it, because you've asked them to do it, or you've told them to do it, and they're doing it for the sake of peace or because they love you for whatever reason. But then they will eventually start to become resentful of you, and that's not a good place to be. So essentially that hate that they have for the task is being transferred in subtle ways to you, and it's not a good place to be. So in order to get around that, it's important that you have a conversation and find out what you like, what they like. And when you can step in those places, then you find the romance, which is why I've called this kitchen romance. But it's not just limited to the kitchen, but all the other aspects of housework. There's certain things that you like, certain things that you dislike. But if you can have a conversation and come to an understanding and an agreement that you're going to do certain things, they're going to do certain things. If there are things that you both hate doing, then you look at ways of outsourcing those things or getting outside help. Okay, so top tip, have a conversation with your spouse to find out what they like, what they dislike, how they like to chip in, how you can both contribute to the housework in the house. And when you find yourself doing small things, but you're doing it with a heart, with all of your heart, you're doing it from a heart of love, and you're actually doing something that you enjoy doing, or at least you don't mind doing because you want to serve your partner, then it strengthens the relationship and it creates romance, because then you're creating small memories without even knowing, that you look back upon one day and cherish when you're nice and old. And secondly, number two, instead of telling, ask. So today, that when I was having a conversation about the maggots with this person, they were telling me, they were not asking me. You must realize, and I see too many couples do this. Just because you're in a relationship, or just because you're married, doesn't mean that you have the rights to give your spouse orders. They are not your child. You can give your children orders and tell them what to do, but with your spouse, always remember that this is a grown person, and before they met you, they had a life of their own and were making decisions of their own accord. But because they've said I do to you, they're submitting their will to your will, and you submit your will to theirs. But do not abuse it by telling them what to do, because sometimes you'll create resistance, or again, resentments. So it's better to ask, would you mind folding the laundry? So when you're asking, ask with knowledge of what your spouse likes. If you know it's something they hate doing, why ask them to do it? Because again, it goes back to you insisting on your own way. But if you know it's something they don't mind doing, or even better, something they enjoy doing, then ask, like, would you mind doing the gardening for me sometime this week, perhaps? Ask sweetly. And you never know what they'll say. So ask instead of tell. Number one, have a conversation to find out each other's likes and dislikes. Number two, ask and don't tell. Don't be giving nobody no orders. Ask them nicely and wait for them to respond. But the danger or the risk with asking is that they might say no. So you have to prepare yourself for that they might say no, and you have to just accept that with grace. Okay? So from my heart to yours, do stay safe. Until next time, keep that kitchen romance alive. Take it easy. Bye.